So, Steve Harwell, the frontman of iconic 90s band Smash Mouth, has now retired from music. Now, if you've been listening to Smash Mouth for as long as I have, you probably noticed there's been a pretty steady decline over the years. And part of it is, well, they kind of lost their luster sometime around 2006 or 7. And another is that Steve Harwell has been slowly but surely losing his grip, and there's a few factors regarding that I'll get into later. But Smash Mouth has been a pretty interesting band in my opinion. I wouldn't consider them one of the best bands of all time by a long shot. They make very safe, very very sterile pop music, or should I say pop rock music. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. The reason why I don't treat Smash Mouth the way I see many other people online treat Smash Mouth is that they have had a profound effect on me throughout my childhood. I think back to like the late 90s, early 2000s, and you almost couldn't escape Smash Mouth. They appeared in almost every children's show or any like family film you can think of. I mean, Shrek obviously, but then you have like movies like Zoom Academy for Superheroes, where they're credited as music, like music by Smash Mouth, because they use at least 8 tracks, or maybe even 10 tracks, from the band. And I thought that was insane. That was like the very, very height of their popularity, I think. And, I gotta give them credit. Like, they really made a name for themselves. And when you listen to their earlier stuff, when they tried to be like this ska punk band or like this edgier sound, if you listen to songs like Flow or Beer Goggles, like it's like, okay, they had a bit of a mean streak. Wow, I didn't expect that from a band that is tied to a CGI ogre all the time. But here we are. And on the topic of Shrek, I think the biggest reason why Smash Mouth is sort of even relevant today is largely because of the internet, largely because they've now become a meme. Now, don't ask me to explain why Smash Mouth became a meme. Memes to me are so inexplicable that I can't even explain them half the time or at all. I think it's largely because Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life became so popular. And another reason is because a young man by the name of John Sudano did a ukulele cover, which got a huge bolster of views. I remember Neil Cicierega did a album where he literally sampled Smash Mouth and reincorporated it into other songs. And I don't know, there's just this huge wave of DreamWorks movies that just get turned into memes. Like, B-movie, I guess, is a meme now. I'm pretty sure fucking Turbo is going to be a meme someday. But, I don't know, like, it's hard to explain. But the biggest takeaway is Smash Mouth being a meme was both the best and worst thing to happen to the band. If you follow their Twitter, they've made a lot of like antagonistic replies to a lot of the things that fans send to them, and it's almost like they're not in on the joke, or they're just not self-aware, and that's how they always come across. And that's unfortunate, because I feel like had they just played along, people would have more fun with this. But either way, people are having fun with this because they don't really know like the dark side of Smash Mouth. Before I get into it, I just want to mention a few incidences that have occurred over the last little while. Possibly the biggest incident happened when Smash Mouth played at a motorcycle Toyota Fest, or something to do with motorcycles. I don't know, but in any case, they got on stage and were immediately pelted with loaves of bread. And Steve Harwell did not take this lightly. And I mean, like, as soon as the band started playing, he still kept, like, arguing. It's like, get whoever threw this bread, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of him. Like, that kind of stuff. And, like, I'm not saying it's like a family-friendly concert, but just, like, for a band that's featured so much on, like, movies meant for, like, a younger audience, like, it's pretty clear Steve Harwell doesn't really have, like, very good candor on stage. His behavior is, like, incredibly unnecessary when it comes to reacting to fellows throwing bread. I mean, I don't know how angry I would be if someone threw a piece of bread at me. Because who throws bread, honestly? But when I think about it, it's not a comfortable video for me to watch because eventually the band members were playing All Star for like 4 minutes straight and they haven't even gotten to the chorus yet because they have to wait for Steve's cue. Yeah, eventually they just take over and start playing themselves because, yeah, Steve's still arguing with like everyone else on stage. And recently, the most heartbreaking news is that after a concert at a wine fest, they tend to tour at a lot of festivals now, which is a pretty steady way for like older bands to generate income. Steve Harwell was completely disassociated on stage. He was angrily shouting at the crowds. He was flipping people off. He was clearly drinking heavy amounts of alcohol. This was the breaking point for Steve Harwell because shortly after the concert, he simply resigned from the band and from music. And there's a couple things I want to talk about with Steve Harwell. And it makes me feel a lot. In 2001, shortly before their second album, Harwell had a son named Presley who passed away from acute leukemia at the age of only 6 months. I imagine that took a massive toll on him. I don't know if that set a chain reaction that would follow years later, but I have a feeling that it was definitely a heavy blow to him. In 2013, Harwell was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, heart failure, and Wernicke encephalopathy. And from what I can tell, that's a neurological disease that's caused by chronic alcoholism, which can affect motor function, speech, and memory. And Harwell has stated many times that he retired from since these problems hindered his ability to perform well. And it's very clear from when you see him perform live that Steve is very intoxicated because he just doesn't appear focused at all. He always misses his cues. His bandmates always have to cover his tracks. And he's very quick to be belligerent or even aggressive on stage. Not that he beats people up or anything, but it's just like he just doesn't seem to stick. He doesn't seem to focus as much. And to be honest, I get a little ticked off when I read comments in these videos and how people are like, oh, this is the funniest that Smash Mouth has ever been. This is the most relevant that they'll ever be. And I find that disheartening because as a band, I don't think Smash Mouth means any harm. Like, yeah, you can kind of laugh at them. They're a little cheesy, I guess. But the way I see it is, they're just, to quote Jennifer Lopez, they're just guys having fun. They're nothing to be afraid about. That was a deep cut. But I think if you want, just try to listen to more of their stuff past All Star, because I really like their first album. I think their second album, like their first album, Fushu Mang, is a lot of fun. It's if you want to see Smash Mouth be a little bit edgier than usual, or if you want to listen to Astor Lounge, which is the one that has All Star, and quite a few others that got them onto the world stage. And that's why I don't understand why Smash Mouth is called a one-hit wonder, because they've had plenty of hits. All Star is just the one that everyone thinks of. And yeah, I don't know, I think in terms of how I see it, I'm going to kind of miss Smash Mouth. I regret never seeing them live. Even if like a performance like what I just mentioned turned out to be a disaster, at least I could have said I was there. And it's sad when you think of like their appearance in like I don't know, like think of like Kim Possible or Rat Race where they just show up on stage. It's like, hey, we're gonna do a show. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on. And it's it fills me up with this joyous feeling. I get a lot of fuzzies when I listen to Smash Mouth. I feel kind of like young again listening to a lot of those songs. They bring me back a lot. But it's like they're clearly unable to keep going. I think the bassist of the band has stated that he's going to take over vocal duties, which is what he's kind of had to do on stage anyways, so it won't likely be the same without Steve Harwell. He is the face of the band. I mean, as soon as you look at the All-Star thumbnail, he's the first thing you see. I feel for him, and I hope he can get the help that he needs. I also wish the best for his family. And yeah, sorry if this kind of took a dark note. It's just I feel like not enough people are pointing out the clear reasons as to why Steve Harwell is like not too well. I think maybe the internet culture surrounding him is definitely exacerbated things, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. All I know is that it was clearly affecting them, and from what I can see, I don't know what Smash Mouth is gonna do moving forward. They haven't released an album since 2012. I mean, they released an acoustic cover of like their first album, but I mean that's just sort of like just for fun. I feel like I'll at least still enjoy Smash Mouth, but there's still gonna be that tint of like the clown who cries or something where it's just like, yeah, we can chuckle at him all you want, but at the end of the day, he's hurting, and I think right now he just needs to recover. So, so long, Steve Harwell. I would make some cliche reference to All Star, but I think I'll do Fuck It, Let's Rock? No, how about Fuck It, Let's Recover? Yeah, Fuck It, Let's Recover. Fuck It, Let's Recover. Fuck It, Let's Recover.
So let me tell you what my last straw is. We were all in quarantine the past year and a half, and you know, it certainly took a toll on all of us in certain ways. So I think right now I just want to kind of reflect on at least some of the counting blessings, as the saying goes. So I definitely spent a lot of time being active, and even if it wasn't like being physical and doing home workouts, I was always out and about doing walking around the neighborhoods that I was at and into the forest, into nature walk trails and stuff like that. Definitely calmed down my nerves quite a bit during that time. But there was so much uncertainty, we didn't know when things were going to reopen and when things would sort of get back to some sort of normal. And this is long before the vaccine came into the picture. So there really just wasn't much to do. And now that you have so much downtime when you're at home, you're just like, well, I guess I should pick up a few hobbies or maybe get down to the stuff that I don't normally do because I'm always working. So I think my first little while being at home, I was just sort of coloring, like not like in coloring books, but there's like these adult coloring books that are like made for people to go through sort of like a therapeutic venture. And that kind of helped me out a bit. I was doing Taibo. I mean, here I am, Cody from the 90s, saying I did some Taibo. I mean, we all had those VHSs growing up. Why not just pop them on YouTube one day? I mean, Taibo's not bad. It's like a combination of Taekwondo and boxing, and it keeps you active and fit. But it still didn't feel enough to me. So eventually I just started writing. I wrote a short script in the first chunk of my quarantine. And then actually to flash forward to the very end of my quarantine, I finalized the second draft of another short story that I had. So yeah, a lot of writing came from that. A lot of writing treatments for like feature length movie ideas that I have, and that all came from pitching with a few of my friends, and Lyle and Evan to be exact, and their friends. We always get together and just swap ideas together and to see where they go. And it was nice. It was nice to actually get out these ideas and not just have them kind of bubbled with me, because the second you let your ideas out in the open, it's a gamble. It's either going to click with people or it's not going to work. And then playing a lot of video games kind of kept up my time, and the three video games being the Ratchet and Clank games, like the original three, definitely swallowed a lot of my time. I actually played them on mute and played music at the same time, which was kind of fun. I was going through albums and albums and albums and greatest hits of everything. There also was a little bit of a short period where I was doing like a puzzle with my fiance, and it was a 1,000 piece puzzle, but it really didn't go anywhere, to be honest. And we thought it could definitely pass the time, and really it just frustrated us because we literally only got like the top, the bottom, the sides done, and then we just sort of just let it go and we dismantled it. Yeah, a lot of things that just you pick up on. Definitely cooking, becoming a better cook in the kitchen. That was something I think I mentioned before on this show. Like uh, home meals and home delivery services definitely helping me out to cook chicken, pork chops, salmon, shrimp, ground turkey, and just doing like all types of recipes, and not even just meat and seafood. Like there's a lot of vegetarian meals that you'd be surprised if you give it a shot. It tastes pretty good. A few vegan meals too, like some Beyond Meat burgers, like or ground Beyond Meat inside of like a Mexican shrimp bowl, or Mexican just taco bowl, I should say. But then there's another shrimp bowl that's really good, and like different types of pizzas that you can make that don't have to have meat in it. It's just all different types of stuff, which is really good. I think the kind of highlights that I watched throughout the quarantine were there was this one. I think I actually found myself loving miniseries, like even if it's like a mini documentary, like The Jinx, the story of Robert Durst, just how this millionaire got away with so much, and it was insane, the lying and conceiving nature of this guy. It's amazing. And it was just so incredible to see like the filmmakers documenting this whole thing was getting almost involved with the whole mystery themselves. And it takes a different perspective. Another miniseries would be Big Little Lies. Yeah, Big Little Lies actually was really well written, really well acted. There was a lot of tension in scenes, and just all the characters had like everything all fleshed out with themselves, and it was definitely leading towards something really tragic. I won't give it away what it is, but it certainly paid off in a really nice way. Um, just a lot of entertaining movies too, like The Mask of Zorro. I had never seen it, and that was a really fun swashbuckling kind of adventure. Three Men and a Little Baby. It's a cute little movie, whatever. These three guys just get a baby mysteriously on their doorstep, and they have to like take care of it and figure out what the hell, why is this baby here? And they just work off of each other really well, those three guys. After Hours is another really good one. Martin Scorsese film from the 80s. Just, I wouldn't be surprised if the Safdie brothers, who did Good Time and Uncut Gems, thinks this is their favorite movie of all time, because it's definitely a, oh my God, how much worse can this night possibly get kind of movie. There's a few foreign films that I watched, like Cinema Paradiso, just an epic character study. Just I highly recommend it to anybody. It's an underrated gem. I was also going through a bit of a anime phase with my fiance. We pretty much watch all of Hayao Miyazaki films, all the Studio Ghibli stuff. The ones that definitely stood out were My Neighbor Totoro, just an adorable little movie. The Wind Rises was another great one. But we rewatched Spirited Away, and I hadn't seen it for like 10 years, and I think it's one of the greatest films of all time. It might quite possibly be like in my top three, five animated movies ever made. Like it is just fantastic. It is a work of art, and in the most purest form. Like I highly recommend that one. And when I was off last Halloween, I spent the whole month, all those 31 days, watching just, oh my God, like a few, quadruple dozen, however you want to say, 50 plus horror movies. And most of them were kind of junk. They didn't have anything to say. Like they just sort of like just typical slashers or like very average haunted house stories. But the two that really stood out to me was the remake of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978. I just I got so creeped out watching this movie, and it's just been sticking with me ever since. This Korean movie, the South Korean movie called I Saw the Devil, fantastic. Just it it knows how to just tell a revenge story and just in such a different, unique way, where you kind of feel bad for the person who is out pursuing the one he's getting revenge on, but you understand why he's doing what he's doing fairly quickly, and it's really fascinating. Another little Netflix special. There was Bo Burnham's Inside. I mean, some people might think his song lyrics are a bit, political or, kind of however you want to say it. I think it's all just like fun and games. And, the whole intention is just to get us through these challenging times at being at home. And for a guy that's just putting that much effort into the lighting and the lyrics, Bo Burnham, you have my stamp of approval. I thought you did a really good job. The few films that I watched that came out in 2020, there wasn't really much that I loved, but I can say some standouts were Defy Bloods, Spike Lee's film on Netflix. Really great story, really well made in the way that he told it as well, with aspect ratios and playing with time, as well as Pieces of a Woman. Now, it's a movie that I feel like definitely peaked in its opening scene that really, oh my God, it almost lasts like a good first half of the movie, like, half an hour to 35 minutes in, it peaks really high, and it can either make or break people either way afterwards. You just have to kind of experience it a bit, but it's a really touching human drama. Um, Another one would be Censor. Censor to me was like, I love these types of like creepy atmospheric movies. It's all about the video nasties era from the early 1980s, and you just follow a woman in the story that's like going through a journey, and I just don't want to give it away, but it's quite the experience. And for a first time director and on such a small budget, just did an excellent job. And then just fun stuff. I watched the new James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, which I thought was objectively an improvement off of the 2016 dud, whatever the fuck that was. Because this movie has a lot of character, a lot of violence, a lot of comedy, and it's funny. I was able to sneak my way, well, not sneak my way into the theater, but I able to kind of sniggled my way into seeing Tenant when things were open where I live, and it was just like I got in and got out kind of thing. I waited till like there wasn't barely anybody in the theater just because of COVID reasons, and my experience was kind of disappointing. I felt like the movie was a bit disappointing in terms of its plot, and it's just another one of these Christopher Nolan movies where he's just trying to be so heady for the sake of being heady. And the sound design again wasn't something that I would expect out of a Christopher Nolan movie, because I'm usually that's the thing I like to go to Christopher Nolan movies for, is like to get immersed into the visuals and the sound design and just that Hans Zimmer, kind of energy that comes out of it. So that was kind of disappointing last fall when I went to the theater. But this past summer, my return to the theater was this smaller independent film from A24 called The Green Knight, and that to me was like an amazing experience, like just an adult fantasy film based on the nephew of King Arthur. And my God, just everyone has to see it. Like, I haven't seen a film like this before. It's not schlocky. It's not action packed for the sake of being action packed. It's actually like a classic methodical and mythical story, really. Just has a great arc to it as well. So that to me was like the appetizer in the theater before the main feast, being Dune, which I'll definitely talk about Dune on this program coming up. But yeah, that just rewatching old films as well, like stuff I've already seen before. I feel like, especially during these times of like stressing out and trying to calm down, it's totally acceptable to rewatch films that you've seen numerous times before, or shows even. Like, I watched The Simpsons twice, like the golden age. I mean, seasons like 1 to 8. Say, I did that twice. My fiance showed me Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Thought that was a very solid, fun show. Yeah, just just kind of keeping it cool, I think was the most important. Like I think during the whole time, I think during the day, I felt more like kind of restless, where I felt like I needed to do something. In the morning, I was feeling okay just to start my day, but then as the day rolled out past noon and in between sometime between 6 and 5, I start to be like, okay, maybe I can settle down and watch a movie, do something, with my time, and I don't feel as hopeless. But now that things are kind of opening up, I do feel like now's the time to really cherish those blessings and all those like moments that we had throughout quarantine, and like really not let go of all the stuff that you gravitate to as a person, all your hobbies, all your interests. Just because you're going back to work, the important thing is to not let that go. Because I know like the machine was constantly going before the pandemic, and now that it kind of just broke and things are kind of getting repaired and getting back to not back to normal, but a new normal just to kind of move forward. It taught us a lesson that like we're not just all about our jobs. We have lives of our own. We have people in our lives that probably we take for granted sometimes, and we shouldn't. And it's all just about kind of like being centered, really, and it's okay to feel anxious. It's kind of what I want to leave everybody off with today. Like it's okay to feel anxious. It is okay. You're okay, man. You're okay, girl. Just take care of yourself. Have a good one, guys.
Good evening, ladies and germs. Tonight, I'm going to talk about something negative about one of my favorite things in the world, and that is going to the movies. I'm a pretty optimistic guy, in my own humble opinion, but I'm going to mix things up a little and recount some really unpleasant times I've had going to the movie theaters. Um, all of these stories take place before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, when going to the movies was something we could all do safely. But the good news is, with vaccination rates climbing in the city in which I live, going to the movie theaters will soon return to its normal state, where anyone can just go. No social distancing measures, no audience crowd restrictions, just pleasant times. Anyways, overall, my time at the movies has been pretty good, despite what I hear constantly about other people saying that they don't like going to the movies because of just how bad the experiences could be. Like people talking, kids crying, the seats not working, the speakers, malfunctioning or just being too loud. So, um, overall, my experience at the movies throughout my life has been positive, but there are three really, really bad experiences that stand out in my memory, and I'm going to share them all with you tonight. The first negative movie-going experience I want to talk about that stands out in my memory took place in the spring of 2018. Lyle and I went to the Tiff Bell Lightbox in downtown Toronto to see a screening of an older movie called Sid and Nancy. And Lyle, being a big fan of the Sex Pistols, was eager for me to check this out because he knew that I was a fan of Gary Oldman, and he would want to know what I would think of the story of Sid and Nancy. So we are watching the movie, and overall, I get what's happening. The one thing that was really unpleasant about watching Sid and Nancy was not so much the movie itself, although the movie itself does have some very dark moments. But in very serious moments of the movie, we heard these drunken assholes sitting like in the next row away from us, just cackling and laughing at very serious moments in the movie. And it took me right out of it. I wouldn't say that my experience with watching the movie was completely ruined, but there were several like very serious moments in Sid and Nancy that I was seeing for the first time that were completely destroyed for me as a result of a bunch of drunken losers just who paid money to see the movie and snuck booze, and they're just chugging it and being a bunch of chuckle fucks in the crowd. This is a super common experience that many people have talked about, where just drunken people just, or people on some kind of drugs will just sneak into the movie theater and they'll just be laughing and joking the whole time. But this kind of movie, Sid and Nancy, is not the type of movie where you do that for anyone looking to have a fun time at the movies. And if you do ever want to go into the movies a little or a lot intoxicated, just don't do this shit, please. The second story I'm going to tell you is actually a story in which I was kind of the bad guy. Now, I'll explain. In the summer of 2013, when Iron Man 3 was released, my friends and I were all on, like, a Marvel high. Like, the Avengers had blown our minds, and we had rewatched it countless times. So when Mr. Stark was coming back to the big screen, we were really excited to go see Iron Man 3. We sat down, and the movie began, and overall, the movie itself, at the time I saw it, it kind of met my expectations. I was expecting them to do justice to the Mandarin, because I had heard so much about what kind of a character he was, and I was really looking forward to seeing how Ben Kingsley would add to the character and what they would do on the big screen. So this is what happened. In the scene, we got the movie itself was a bit of a mixed bag, honestly, for me, up to the point I kept tuning in and out of it. It had some pacing issues, but sometimes what I will do is I will prop my foot up on the seat of a. I'll prop my foot on the seat of the seat in front of me in the next row. And in this case, I didn't want to be too obvious about it because there was someone seated in this row. They didn't feel my shoe just resting. But so this is what happened. At the scene where Tony Stark breaks into the compound where he suspects the Mandarin is, and he's about to take on, I thought we were honestly going to get a scene where he has to confront the fully powered Mandarin without his Iron Man suit, and I was really, really interested to see where that scene was going. But once they get into the bedroom where he thinks the Mandarin is, this dude, played by Ben Kingsley, in a British accent out of nowhere, just comes out of the washroom saying, I won't go there for 20 minutes. And I was so, like, underwhelmed by what was going on that my foot slipped off the seat that it was resting on, and I accidentally kicked the theater patron in the back of the head. And thankfully, it didn't turn ugly. He just looked back at me and gave me a dirty look while that scene was playing. And he even, like, very slightly whispered, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I just quietly mouthed, "I'm sorry." He could barely hear me. But I was kind of in a state of anxiety for the rest of the movie because I thought when the movie was over, he was going to, get out of his seat and kick my ass. Thankfully, that didn't happen, but he kind of just forgot about it, and we kind of just sat through the rest of the movie. But in that scene where Tony finds out who the Mandarin really is, just this bumbling, moron actor who isn't really the Mandarin, he's playing the Mandarin as a character, as like a fake terrorist threat. I guess I was so, like, underwhelmed that I kind of just, my foot just slipped when I had to process what was going on. I accidentally kicked a theater patron in the back of the head, and I was really not one of my brightest moments, but not one of my brightest or proudest moments, but I'm taking it upon myself to share with you all because this is so to speak, and I'm just going to just come clean with that. So, one of the most negative movie theater going experiences of my life was actually my fault. The worst movie going experience I've ever had in my life was completely not my fault, and I'll get into that story. In December of 2009, Avatar was released in theaters. I was really excited to see it based on everything I had heard about the movie. And I went to go see it with my dad. We saw it in 2D because we consciously made that decision to go see it in 2D because I wanted a genuine impression. We went to a cheaper theater with a cheaper admission price in the suburb of Toronto that I was living in at the time, Richmond Hill, Ontario. There is a we went to the Elgin Theater, and admittedly, this theater has gotten a lot better over the years. A lot of it's become a really, really awesome theater, and there is a novelty to it. But my dad and I went to go see Avatar for the first time ever in 2D before we went and back and saw it again in 3D. So, at the Elgin, the problem with the Elgin was back in the day, in like the late 2000s, it was the theater that all the rowdy high school kids, and by high school kids I mean like the minor niners or the freshmen, would go and just, you know, be jerk offs and just fuck with whatever movie they were watching. So I'll tell you. So this is what happened. In the first 2 minutes of the movie, when Jake Sully is on that spacecraft flying towards Pandora and he's coming out of cryosleep, he nothing was wrong with the scene. The scene was really cool, but these kids, while Jake Sully is narrating and he's getting out of cryosleep and the shuttle is flying towards the surface of Pandora, these asshole, I guess they were like 13 to 15-year-old punks, were sitting like 2 rows in front of my dad and I, and they were pointing a laser pointer at the theater screen, and it got so annoying that a theater patron just bellowed, "Yo, stop that shit," so loudly that the whole theater could hear it. And it took me completely out of the movie, but those punks actually did turn off the laser pointer and knocked it off. So we did get to enjoy like a lot of the initial introductory scenes on Pandora, until they get to one of what is supposed to be one of the most intimate scenes in the movie, where Neytiri shows Jake Sully the tree of the ancestors not too far from Home Tree, and that's where they decide to mate. And there is a scene where they actually show them mating, and it's a pretty tame love scene by most cinematic standards. Like, they don't do anything like crazy. They kind of just, you know, hug it out a little bit and they kiss, or they basically show like how the Na'vi get intimate with one another. These punk kids piped up again saying shit like, "Get it on! Yeah, I do that to my mother!" And that took my dad and I completely out of the movie. Neither of us really said anything, but with the whole laser pointer thing, like an hour earlier, my dad didn't care about the laser pointer thing, but I looked over on my dad's face and like it looked like he was going to go punch those kids out, and I wouldn't have been mad at him if he did, because like if you want to go make fun of a movie, please go make fun of a movie that deserves to be made fun of. Stop pulling this intoxicated clown shit in the theater when we are going to see highly anticipated quality films that are meant to like really resonate with audiences. I, as a moviegoer, hate it when little kids do that shit. And I'm recording, at the time of this recording, I have my ticket purchased for Dune. I'm seeing it opening night with a date, and I am eagerly waiting for this movie. Admittedly, my co-host on this show, Cody, the creator of Pop Talk, has hyped this movie up quite a bit, and I'm kind of on that hype train, to be honest. I want to see a really good movie. If anyone ruins the movie-going experience of seeing Dune in the theater, I will lose it. Good night.